Our 3 Cents is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network. For more information, please go to greenlitpodcasts.com. Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Our 3 Cents, a weekly podcast celebrating the absolute joy of video games. My name is Jonathan Dunn, and as always I am joined by my childhood friend Chris Dow.
Kick punch, it's all in the mind.
And my adulthood friend Minty Booth.
Tangible or concrete?
And this week, we are bringing you an Our 3 Cents first. After 2 years of forcing your ears to abide with our 3 respective nonsense, we are joined by a special guest for a special episode, revelling in the dying appreciation of the denier of the digital revolution, the physical video games.
Oh.
So, today we would like to introduce Jonathan Polan, known more colloquially as JP. Hello and welcome to you, JP.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, JP is, shall we say, an obsessive Switch collector.
Just a little.
Among other things, the founder of the site JP's Switchmania, which acts as a central repository for Switch reviews, as well as a weekly resource for upcoming physical releases on the platform. More recently, he started the Switchmania Playcast with Jeffrey Wittenhagen and Barry Carenza, and he also worked on the Switch Collector Volume 1, a book that collects together release information for every physical title that came out in the first year of the Switch's life. And finally, at the tail end of 2020, JP co-founded Premium Edition Games with Jeffrey, which is a new physical publishing house for boutique indie releases on the Nintendo Switch. We'll hear more about all of these achievements and more a little later on, but for now, how are you, JP? And more importantly, please do tell us what of your entire Switch physical collection, what cartridge is currently residing in your Switch?
Oh, well, first off, thanks everybody for having me. It's an honor to be on our 3 Cents, and you'll get to know a little bit about me over the course of this episode. But to answer your first question, right now in my Switch, my physical cartridge is Immortals Phoenix Rising.
Ooh.
I am just past the 21-hour mark. I still feel like I have a long way to go, but I'm completely obsessed with that game.
Fantastic. Is it the poor man's Breath of the Wild, or is it better than that?
Honestly, I enjoy it, I think, better than Breath of the Wild, and I think it's because of the dialogue. I mean, both games are open world. You get to pretty much go anywhere, climb anything, but the dialogue in Immortals is just like A+. I mean, we talked about this on our playcast, and also I talk about it, on social media, but the dialogue itself could lend itself to just make an amazing comedy action movie. It's just so hilarious. You literally stop what you're doing in the game to listen to the narration, and to me that just, I think, takes it above Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I mean, Breath of the Wild certainly revels in just leaving you alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
just thinking about what you've done. Immortals did look like it was a lot of fun. It's one that I think I would pick up if it goes on sale at some point. I think I could definitely see myself picking it up because it does look really nice.
Yeah, and I think what's great is that, if you want to, you have a few different options. So for people who like to, explore everything, do all the side quests, there's plenty of that, because in the game, at any point you can click, at least on the Switch, you click on the right, analog thumb, and it kind of goes into like a sensory mode where it's a first-person view. You can go 360 as you're looking around the whole landscape, and as you're getting over certain points, the system starts to vibrate. So when you click it again, it kind of creates a marker of where certain items are. So if you're looking like if it's a crystal, it'll appear itself. So that way it stays on your map. So at any point you're playing, you'll have a compass that tells you where all these items that you found are located.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, and there's plenty. I mean, there's, I guess the equivalent of the dungeons and whatnot in Zelda. So you go in and you do mini missions to unlock power-ups and new weapons and coins and stuff like that. And what's nice is that if you just want to play the game for the story, they have that easy mode where, all the enemies are just reduced to practically nothing, so you can just enjoy the game itself. There's obviously all the way up to the hardcore mode if you really want a challenge. So, it lends itself to be very accessible, and it has so much that if you're casual, you can just play the game. If you are a completionist, there's stuff to keep you busy for 50 plus hours.
Nice. Good sell.
Thank you. You hear that, Ubisoft?
So to kick proceedings off, I think it's fair to say that the three of us here have varying relationships with physical games, notions of collections, hoarding, preservation of digital media, financial management. I mean, that's just a map of Chris's psyche on a Monday. And Chris is certainly the collector of the group because, I mean, me and Minty have slightly different approaches. Now, JP, do you have a copy of every single physical release on the Switch?
So technically no, and the reason I'll say that is because I haven't fully committed yet to a Japanese only collection, so I am going. So I guess there's tiers of how I collect. I mean, first and foremost, I go for a complete ESRB North America release that I have, and when I collect, I do the variant covers. I focus on actually like the cover and the artwork. So not so much buying a collector edition and a regular edition, but more so is the cover art different, and that's kind of how I base my obsessiveness. But I also go for a worldwide collection that supports English, so in the UK. So any PEGI release that doesn't come out in the US and or has a different cover, I'll go for. Overseas in Japan and Asia, if there's a game that supports English that we didn't get here, and again, if it's a different cover, I'll go for that. So I guess I have about 95% of the entire Switch games that have been published physically so far.
I'm going to say that's all right. That's a good effort, I think, for me, and I've spoken about this before a little bit on the podcast, and how, because I have obsessive compulsive disorder, a few nice purchases of box sets and a growing library on the shelf can very fast become an obsession. So I've had to be strict with myself over the years, although I will still buy nice collector's editions for games that mean a lot to me, and I'll hold on to games that I have more of a personal relationship with. So like looking on my shelf behind me, I've got things like my original copy of Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Gold. I've got my collector's edition of the Switch version of Link's Awakening, which is just absolutely gorgeous, and there's this lovely steelbook in there which is in the style of an original Game Boy, and if you turn it over you can see the original cartridge in the back. It's so nice, and I've got that sat with the original box and cartridge of Link's Awakening and my original Game Boy too, which is lovely. I've got other sort of nice collector's editions like the Octopath Traveler pop-up book special edition, the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition special edition, all the editions, which is, it's got loads of lovely stuff in there. A Dead Cells one, Breath of the Wild one. I can't even remember what's in that, to be honest.
Big sword, isn't it, in Breath of the Wild?
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, it's the Master Sword in its plinth, isn't it?
Well, that sounds great. I should get that out. I was really, really hoping that actually this weekend my collector's edition of Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps for the Switch box set would have arrived, because apparently it's on its way, and it's this beautiful, like, just thing. It just, I'm very excited. What else have I got on there? I've got a row of GameCube games, some Saturn games, even a Master System game, which is actually a copy of the Asterix game that me and my brother used to play when we had our Master System, but we found this copy in my wife's mum's loft when we were sorting through some stuff of hers.
Oh, wow.
And it was just this lovely joint memory of like both of our childhoods that, like, whilst separated by a gulf of time and space before we would, meet and fall in love, we were both sat playing the same game. And that's just, I love that. So I've got that as well. And sort of like the thing that dawned on me looking at this collection is I'm trying to figure out what my rule is for like what I buy, what I keep, what I let go, is basically that, like, I feel like I'm curating my own personal museum of my gaming history, and I think that's how it will continue to grow as well. Not necessarily worrying about having all of something or holding on to everything, but keeping what really matters to me. I'm going with quality, not quantity. How about you, Minty? How does this work for you? Like, what do you find makes the cut? What would be in your sarcophagus?
I'm sorry to say, not a huge amount. I've never really had the income to enjoy such things as special editions or owning more than 5 or 6 games at a single time. I think on the spectrum of the 3 hosts, I'm on the sort of the miserly end. So if I complete a game, and I don't think I'm going to complete it again, it goes straight back to the shop for credit, so that I don't have to spend 50 quid on a new game. So I think at the moment, I think I'm creeping up to maybe 8 physical Switch games. It's only that high, because of the lockdown and because my copy of Fire Emblem Three Houses was left too close to my Himalayan salt lamp, which means that the sleeve has it's sustained a little bit of saline damage. And
Oh, if I had a penny for every time that had happened.
Oh, I tell you, I'm so ashamed, and I don't want the folks in game to make fun of me.
Well, if you think that's bad, when I used to work at Game, somebody came in with a with a stack of PS2 games to trade in. Like, you have to open them up, make sure obviously the game's in there and it's not scratched or whatever. And I opened one game up, and inside was a used cotton wool bud.
Oh.
And I sent him from the shop. I got in trouble with my manager for doing that, but I was so grossed out by that. I said, get out of my sight. Get out. It was absolutely horrendous. What about you, Chris? How do you justify your actions?
I mean, yeah, I own a lot of games. Like we've said a few times, of the three of us, I am the one that obsessively collects them and struggles to let them go. I think, though, there is a reason for it, at least in my head. And I've said this before, that I like the idea that games have been around about as long as we have been alive, like in terms of like being a mainstream thing or a semi-mainstream thing. And I just like having a knowledge of it as a medium, because there's nothing else that we can go that far back with and still feel like you can almost keep up with. And physical games for me is a way of just preserving stuff, because it makes it that much easier to know it's going to be there in the future. I mean, this week, JP will definitely know this because I've seen his Twitter in the last week. It's been the Impossible re-release, that the Scott Pilgrim game has returned to digital storefronts after being delisted back in 2014. It looked for a long time that would just never happen. There were too many rights holders involved in that one piece of media. But it's out there, and through limited run as well, it will have a physical release in the very near future, which is fantastic. So it's got that idea of being preserved. It's just things like, I was lucky enough that I had it on my Xbox 360, so I could have played it if I wanted to. But for a game that was pretty critically revered at the time, it reviewed very well. I just think it's a real shame that people wouldn't have been able to access that, to think that, you might read about it, you might see it referenced somewhere, and then just have no recourse to pick it up and play it and see what it actually was. And this happens all the time. Like Telltale Games, up until very recently, when they went bankrupt, sort of a year or so ago, all of a sudden, all their games were just purged off of all storefronts. And it's only because certain properties have been picked up by other publishers now that it's starting to come back, and you can now access some of this stuff again. But it may seem like a really silly fear. But like I said, I have this real joy in reading about, like, sometimes an obscure game and just being able to then find a way of playing it and finding out what it is, and actually having a first-hand experience of being able to see it. And if it's from a current generation, obviously that's normally quite easy. You can pick up a game on most digital storefronts, you can pick up a game on Steam or whatever. But it only takes going back a generation or two, and then you start having issues where you're not always going to be able to actually access that anymore. And I think modern digital rights management as well is a real bane, in that in the near history, like not too long gone, we've lost all of Xbox Live indie games just overnight, delisted, and you can't download it even if you owned it previously. We've lost all of the titles on WiiWare as well from the Wii when that storefront shut down in the same way. If you owned anything on older generation iOS devices like old iPhones, just gone. If developers haven't updated the apps, they're now totally inaccessible. And that's a real shame. But in having these physical games, I can still play a title from the Xbox Live Indie Games days, like one called Bleed, because I own a copy on the PS4 on a physical disc that PlayAsia put out, and that's sat nicely on my shelf. Or I can still play Bit Trip Runner that was on WiiWare, because yes, it is on some digital storefronts now, but I have a nice copy on the Vita on the shelf, so I can pick it up and play it. And like I mentioned, because of companies like Limited Run and their kind of tireless work, Scott Pilgrim is going to be another one of those games that is preserved physically forever for lots of people to be able to access and play. And I think it's just, there's a huge amount of like early cinema, for example, that is just totally lost forever because no one thought to put this stuff aside and archive it properly at the time because it was such a new thing. And I don't want games to go the same way. I feel really passionate that they need to be kind of given a sort of importance that I think the medium deserves, as, it is essentially at the moment the highest grossing medium about, isn't it? In terms of entertainment, it makes more money than anything else. And it just seems crazy that within that, something could come out to reasonable aplomb and just be gone overnight. So yeah, it's just a way of having that archive in front of me, I think, is really important, and knowing, or feeling like at least, I'm doing my bit to preserve that.
So something all of us have prepared is a memory of a particular favourite physical release or limited edition from the annals of our gaming memory that we would like to share with each other and with you, dear listener. So, JP, would you like to kick us off with a memory of yours?
Sure. It was hard coming up because I wasn't always like a big collector. I consider myself a gamer growing up. I had all the consoles, but I was never actively buying every game, mainly because I was a kid and I could only afford what my allowance had or what my parents got me as a gift. But thinking about back in the day, I would say like the PlayStation 1 for me had a lot of fun games. I remember like really enjoying the RPGs, the JRPGs at that time. So one release that came out that I absolutely loved and still feel that it was such a quality release was the Lunar Silver Star story. So if you remember this, it was from Working Designs, and their releases just were never standard. The Lunar game came in this nice box. It came with the Omaki like little box inside that contained, I think at the time it was little standees of the characters. You had the map, you had this hardcover book. I mean, it was just such a quality release, and to me that's what I always equated like a true collector's edition to be. It's just something that really adds a lot of value and enhances it, like the love of a game even more, because you have all these additional physical goodies with it. So from that era, I would definitely say like Lunar and pretty much any Working Design title holds a nice memory to me.
Awesome. Minty, how about you? What physical game that you have possessed holds a special place in your miserly heart?
Well, I've got a couple. I think overall, Majora's Mask 3D, I think that's the only game that I got a special edition for where I've actively engaged with the paraphernalia that came with it. I mean, we'll skip over the poster because I'm just opposed to posters on a physical level and a spiritual level, because who wants a piece of decor that's got visible folds from being stuffed into a box that's the size of a DVD? Mm-hmm. It just ruins it. There was also that lovely badge of the titular Majora's Masks that I don't think I took off my coat for about 3 years. A nice little model of the Skull Kid, which I've got sat on the top of this nice shelving unit in the spare room with my modest amiibo collection. And the carry case for the 3DS. Just a lovely offering. A nice little mix of function and form that I only really got because it was bundled together with the new 3DS. So I thought, well,
nice.
I'm buying this new console, so I might as well enjoy a bit of upmarket tat with the game that comes with it as well. I'd like to give a special mention as well to the Depths of Doom trilogy on the PC. In about, what was that, 1997 maybe? Like, it came in a massive box about the size of a board game that you could get like college credit or UCAS points for learning how to play. But it only had 3 CD-ROMs and a fairly modest manual inside. I really liked it because it had really great box art, and because it was such a massive box, it was just really nice just really nice to look at and to hold. I often think back to it and just think, I just really enjoy those times when people were struggling to find the happy medium between just a CD case and a fucking ottoman to hold their games in.
I mean, PC game boxes of the 90s.
It's absurd. It was absurd.
Arrogantly big.
I couldn't tell you a single thing that was in this box apart from the manual and 3 CDs. Like, what was all that extra space for?
How about you, Chris?
I've owned quite a lot of limited edition games over the years, but these days I tend to avoid buying big lavish editions just because I don't have the space to display anything so much as I used to. As the regular collection of games has grown, I don't have the big space to put like a statue at the end of my shelf or anything like that. So I generally don't buy kind of big box stuff anymore. But a game I do remember actively like coveting as soon as I saw it was going to exist was the Wizards edition of Ni no Kuni on the PlayStation 3.
Oh, yeah.
Our version in this country, and I'm not sure if it was the same in the US, it could have been slightly different, but we got a little plush doll of Drippy, you know, everyone's favourite Welsh king of the fairies.
You love him.
It came with some bonus DLC, you know, take it or leave it. It was just a way to get a couple extra familiars for your character. But it also came with a complete one-to-one replica of the Wizard's Companion, like the book from the game. And for those that haven't played it, and Minty, we've told you to quite a few times, so this is a little warning for you.
Yeah.
Inside the game, you've got like a nearly 200-page long Wizard's Companion manual thing. And this is kind of like all the lore of the game, all the spells of the game, all the bestiary of the game. It's all inside these pages. And you have to refer back to it constantly. It's like just part of the rhythm of the game that you learn new things, you go back to the companion, you find out what you need to do next kind of thing. But having this in front of you, like an actual proper hardback book, properly bound, had a lovely cover with little gems on it, I think, it was just such a nice way of consulting that and not having to go into your digital inventory, but having something physical in front of you that I think made it a better game to play. You know, it was just such a lovingly printed thing that it made everything feel more immersive. And I was quite sad, actually, when the game got ported to modern platforms, as much as I was happy to be able to have a shinier version of Ni no Kuni, a game I really like, I was sad that the Switch version and the PlayStation 4 version, the Xbox version, it didn't come with a book. You couldn't get an edition with a book. There was no limited edition of that title. And when I upgraded my copy, I thought I should really sell the PlayStation 3 one. I don't need 2 copies of this game. But I haven't, because I don't want to split up like the book and the box. I don't want someone else to see this box and be like, oh, it's going to have this amazing book in it, get nothing. And equally, I don't want to have like my game on the shelf on the PlayStation 4 and then a book that it didn't come with. It doesn't feel like it deserves that. So yeah, I have the original box at home in my loft in storage, but it is there. I know the Wizard's Companion's in it, and I just couldn't face getting rid of it. It's such a nice artifact to come with a game.
For any younger listeners, a book is sort of like, imagine if you had an iPad and you just sliced it about 200 or 300 times, and then you sort of just looked at bits of it. You know what? Don't worry about it.
The book is 200 iPads that only do one thing.
There we go. And possibly, if you're listening to this post-apocalypse, could be the currency. Who knows? So for me, I mean, I've got some very precious memories of some physical games and special edition releases. I think I spoke a while back on the podcast at the sheer thrill of holding the physical box for Pokemon Blue I had when my mum surprised me with a copy she'd managed to import. And like you were saying, JP, because of how rare it was for me to get a new game as a child, a lot of those Game Boy games and all of my Saturn games still give me shivers up the spine when I see them. You know, like these are games that I would have read about in Sega Saturn magazine before they were released.
Yep. Then
I would, potentially see them on the shelves in the shop for the week or two that retailers tried to sell Saturn games. I don't know. I mean, it didn't. They didn't stick around long. And then, and then even more time would pass until I got to my next birthday, when I may actually be able to call one of these games my own. Rayman on the Saturn is certainly one of these games, as this was a game that I desperately wanted, rather than a shared game between me and my brother. And also Sonic Jam, which was a game I coveted for even longer than usual, because not only was this a Saturn game that I wanted, but these were also games that I wanted to play and own on the Mega Drive, when we were sort of stuck playing what felt like the off-brand knockoff version of Sonic on the Master System. And so that was just lovely when I sort of finally got to hold that. But I think possibly my absolute favourite physical video game release is actually one that I don't own anymore, because I sold it when I was strapped for cash. And that is the collector's edition of Fallout New Vegas that I had.
Oh.
Now, I had Fallout 3 on my list as my 45th favourite video game of all time. And I said that when I spoke about that Fallout New Vegas was sort of bundled in there, as well in that entry. In retrospect, I think it should have been the other way round, because I think Fallout New Vegas is a better, more focused game. And it was one that I was like super excited to get, because I remember being struck by how rare it was for me to look forward to a PC game coming out, knowing that I had a PC that could run it. And, I'd had such a great time playing Fallout 3. I wanted more. Here was more. And it was a time when I was working in game as well. So I was able to get a very healthy 25% discount on the gorgeous box set that also included a graphic novel, a making of DVD, a pack of cards, and then there were a set of poker chips in the box, which was one for each of the different casinos you could visit on the Vegas Strip, and then a replica of the metal poker chip that is central to the storyline. And I'm so gutted that I don't own it anymore because, well, for one, it was lovely to look at, but also its value has obviously only gone up. And I was having a look at it online last night. People are selling just the poker chips for about 150 quid.
Oh, no.
Wow.
I know. I mean, don't feel too bad because I do still have my physical edition of a PAL release of Panzer Dragoon Saga on the Saturn. So that is my nest egg.
Yeah.
I love that edition of Fallout New Vegas. Unfortunately, my delight in that edition and, you know, my treasured memory of my brief time with it is kind of what led to me buying the collector's edition of Fallout 4, which is the one that came with the full operational wearable Pip-Boy, which I can't say in all honesty I got any value out of anything in that set. But there we go. Never mind. These memories we have. So, JP, let's turn to you and what you're currently doing with your latest venture, Premium Edition Games. What was it that made you turn from collector to publisher?
So, as you know, you mentioned earlier, I run JP Switchmania, which is a very active social media channel website where originally it was meant to store reviews because, just a quick history about myself, when I decided to finally really commit to the Switch, because I don't know if everyone knows this, but when the Switch first came out, I wasn't entirely sold on it. You know, I watched the Direct when they premiered it, and I thought it looked cool. I remember watching it with my friend on the phone, and we're talking about it as they're showing off 1-2 Switch and whatnot. But I wasn't even I wasn't even thinking about going for a full set. But when the system came out, I was excited. I was, you know, reading up about it, leading up to the release. I went to my Best Buy at midnight, got it, and then I bought, I think, 3 out of the 5 launch games worldwide. And within the first week is probably when I made that decision. I was like, well, you know what? There's only 5 games out. Why not try and go for it? I honestly thought it was going to be like the Wii U. I'm like, oh, it's going to have like 200 games over the next couple years. I can do this. I can go for a set. And then somebody said something, I don't know who, and the Switch just started like bursting into popularity. And I mean, now I don't even know how many games I have, but it's a little more than 200, and there's no slowdown. But what's funny is that when I started to really get into the Switch, I wasn't doing any social media channels. I was barely ever on Twitter, but I was on Facebook, and I saw an ad just come up somehow on my feed that says, interested in the Switch, want to write reviews, message me. And it was, at the time, the owner of a new website called The Switch Effect. It was only a month old, so I reached out. I said, yeah, I think I want to do reviews. Never did them before. I wrote a review for Sonic Mania that was out on the eShop. She liked it. And then when I started talking with her, it transitioned very quickly from me doing reviews to me doing interviews. So I started reaching out to developers and publishers, started building friendships and relationships, and I would just interview them. And on the website, they should all still be there. There's probably like over 100 interviews I've done with people in the industry. And then I stayed with that site for like maybe a little over half a year or so. I then switched to another site called Gaming Boulevard that's based in Belgium. I did the same thing. I was doing interviews. And then eventually it got to the point where I was thinking, maybe I should just do this on my own. So I went onto Twitter, which at that point I started to become a little more active. I asked people what my name should be because I had no idea. People started voting, coming up with ideas, Switchmania, Switchmaniacs, and then it just kind of morphed into JP Switchmania, and I started doing reviews and interviews on my site. So I built up a little review team. I had some friends, some new people that I met, and we started actively just doing this. So what was interesting for me is that all this time I'm learning more about the industry, because with all the interviews, you're learning behind the scenes, you're learning about people's passion, you know, what got them into video games, how the games are made, and just all the excitement around that. And then, you know, shortly after that, I started to do the weekly release posts, because for me, it was more of a selfish thing, but I just needed to keep track of everything coming out. There was just so many games everywhere in the world. And because I collect everything that supports English, you know, I have to look at multiple regions. So on any day, I'm looking, no joke, about 14 different retail sites and indie companies and stuff multiple times a day, just so I don't miss anything. And the weekly release post was just a way for me to just keep everything organized. And then it turned out that a lot of people really enjoyed it because it allowed them to keep up with everything and also learn about games that they may have missed. So I started doing that, and then I connected with Jeffrey Wittenhagen. He is a published author, so he brought to my attention that he wanted to do the Switch Collector series that chronicles all the Switch games coming out physically year after year. And to help promote that, we ended up starting the Switchmania Playcast. So it was a way for us to just talk about the Switch, talk about games, keep connected. So we started building up this friendship, and then he approached me last year, probably like a year and a half ago, and came up with the idea that maybe we should start a physical publishing company. And we both love the Switch. We obviously love physical media. We grew up in that era of games being complete in the box, in the case, with manuals and all that stuff. And, we talked back and forth for a while. We're all just busy with our lives, with kids and family and other things. But I would say in 2020, it really kind of started to solidify. We registered the company name. We got approved by Nintendo. And then on August 11th, we launched Premium Edition games with our first release, Super Blood Hockey. And I don't know, it's just kind of like the stars kind of aligned. It felt like the right time where we both wanted to pursue something new and work towards something that we're passionate about. And obviously, I love the Nintendo Switch. To me, it's the first video game community and console that I've ever really felt a part of. So to me, it was just very natural that if I'm going to be doing this, it might as well be for my favorite system.
Fantastic. I mean, all of us have spoken before about how, we would love to venture into something more involved in the industry rather than sort of being on the outside looking in.
Right.
If that's, sort of developing our own games. I mean, it's something that me and Chris definitely barely dabbled with as kids.
Yeah.
But I've got stuff in my head that I think, when I've got time, I'll load up Click Team Fusion and create a mobile game or something. I'd love to be able to do that. And it's one of the wonderful things about this podcast is that it has kind of given us an identity to build on. Certainly over the last year, with us having a lot of downtime in lockdown, we were able to get set up on Twitch and start producing videos, and hopefully that's going to sort of snowball in a similar way to sort of what you've done in terms of turning a hobby into something more professional. So you touched on your first game that you published, and I think you currently have 2 games published with a third on the way soon.
Yes. So right now we're still in production, which is very hard for me because if anyone knows me, I'm the most impatient person in the world. I want things right away. I don't like to wait. So for me to be, now have this company where we have the cartridges in hand, which is the crazy part. Like I have the cartridges for both games, which is Super Blood Hockey and Pigeon Dev Games Collection, which I'll explain the 4 games in that one. But I literally have the cartridge in this blank case on my shelf right now, fully playable. If you go on to, my YouTube channel, the Premium Edition YouTube channel, you can see video of it, in action. And right now where we are at the stage is with our packing facility, we're just finalizing the packaging design. So Nintendo approved all of the artwork and whatnot, and now it's up to the packaging facility to put that all together. So to print it out, compile the case itself, and we're going back and forth on an approval. So, they'll print it out. We'll make sure that the quality is right. We'll make sure that there's no bleeds in the color, lines that shouldn't be there, nothing's blurry. And that's kind of where we are, which is hard because all 5,000 cartridges of these games are just sitting there, and we're just nearing those final steps. So we are close to shipping, I'll say. I'm really optimistic that February is when we'll finally be able to put out an update saying that the games have begun to ship. But yeah, I can go into our games that we have right now for those that aren't familiar. So our first game is Super Blood Hockey. So think of it as a retro RPG 8-bit arcade hockey game. So whether you want a quick match or you want to create a team of convicts to win in the Blood Leagues in franchise mode, this is the game for you, because it's a throwback to, ice hockey, Blades of Steel from the NES era. It's just so much fun. The chiptune music from Sean Daly is just, it just really gets you going. And it's bloody. I mean, it's 8-bit pixelated blood, and it's insane how much blood is just popping out as you're, checking each player. And what's crazy is that you can actually adjust the blood, so you can have it from nothing at all, so you can have your kids play, all the way to just I can't even see the ice hockey rink anymore because it's just bloody. And it's cute because it's all 8-bit, so it's just a lot of fun. It's a great game. We're really happy to be partnered with the developer, Lauren Lemke, and also his digital publisher, which is Digerati. So I think what's special to us about this is that we are a brand new company and they saw something in us and they were willing to partner with us to allow their game to be our first release. So, for that, we're very grateful, and we're so nearing like shipping. So it is very soon. It's limited to 5,000 copies worldwide. So, I'll do a quick plug, but premiumeditiongames.com, and you can pre-order your copy. I wouldn't wait. Of course, I'll say that. But then our second game, and actually what's really cool about this is that with Super Blood Hockey, it's the first solo hockey game physically on the Switch. We have no EA NHL. We have no other hockey game out there. And the only other game I can think of is this, I think it's like Junior League 3-in-1 from the UK, which is a very kiddie game of like basketball, I think soccer and hockey. And it's, very simplistic, but this is the first true solo hockey game, which I think is awesome that we're able to do that. And then with our second release, which is currently up for pre-order as well, it's the Pigeon Dev Games Collection. So it's 4 games from the same developer, Pigeon Dev, and she is based in Russia, and she created Awesome P1, Awesome P2, Bucket Night, Explosive Jake, and those are the 4 games on one cartridge. And what's really cool also about this release is that, to my knowledge, it is the only multi-cart application cartridge in the US, meaning 4 individual games on one cartridge. And I think that's really cool, because when you pop it in, you'll see 4 individual icons appear on your screen. So I'm glad we're able to do that. It's the first time these 4 games have been bundled together physically, because if you recall, on the PS4, Awesome P1 and 2 were available individually through Red Art Games. On the Vita, Awesome P1 and 2 were bundled together, just those 2 games on the Vita from East Asia Soft. But here you have 4 games on one collection. And it's also going to be our first release that offers our retro edition. That's going to come with a retro style box in the size of an SNES box. It's going to come with our official steelbook. And then we're also offering a deluxe edition where you get all that stuff from the retro. It's housed in this Neo Geo style case. It comes with a CD, an enamel pin, and about a 200-page strategy guide book.
Amazing.
So it's not even just an art book. It's actually a strategy guide. It's an interview with the developer. It's the history of the making of the physical production of the game, the history of the games itself, all the artwork as well. But I mean, it's just so comprehensive. Right now we've sent it off to printing already. And because Jeffrey is an author, it was only natural that he would incorporate books into our releases. But I mean, when people see these, it's definitely going to bring back that feel of getting strategy guides back in the day, but so much more. So we are very much looking forward to that. The retro and the deluxe, I will say, will be shipping closer to end of March, April, just because of the steelbook and the guidebook printing times and shipping. But the premium edition, Pigeon Dev and Super Blood Hockey, we're expecting really ideally end of January, more realistically February. So it's not that far off. And then finally, our third game that's not yet up for pre-order, but we did announce, was A Robot Named Fight. So this is from a solo developer, Matt Bittner. He worked with the digital publisher HitSent to bring this to the eShop. But what's cool is that this is a 2D action adventure roguelike that has you going through more than 4 billion unique runs of procedurally generated labyrinths as you get power-ups, you find secrets, you fight creatures, and ultimately you want to get strong enough to fight the mega beast. The tagline is, "Are you fight enough?" And the game is awesome. It has such a cult following that we were very surprised it never got a physical release before. So when we approached them, they were very happy to partner with us. And we're hoping that the pre-orders will go live in the next couple months for a summer physical release. But that one's not yet live, but it is coming.
Fantastic. Certainly looking at the Pigeon Dev collection, it's such a nice addition. I mean, that's the sort of shit I live for.
Me too.
Oh, I love it. Just what a lovely way to sort of celebrate your love of video games, to sort of, be involved in creating something so lovely as that. It's just, really, really nice.
One thing that we always say within the company is that we never want to do anything standard. So, I'll put in quotes, the regular edition is called our premium because Jeff and I played games in the 80s, 90s, and whatnot. So we remember when you would buy a game and that packaging, whether it's a case or a box, was full of stuff. So that's why for us, all of our releases have full instruction manuals, which are 20 plus pages, fully colored. We're doing them in the style of NES manuals. So they're going to open up, landscape, which is really cool.
Beautiful.
We're going to have a slipcover with all of our releases. And right now, the first 2 slipcovers that you see on our website for Super Blood Hockey and Pigeon Dev is by Paul Niemeyer. He's done artwork on Tron. He's the one who created the Mortal Kombat Dragon logo.
Oh, wow.
So he's just, very well known in the community, but his artwork is so unique. So we're going to have slipcovers with those. And then, we'll have our sticker of the game's logo. But what's really cool that Jeffrey wanted to bring back from the Atari Activision days is what we call our challenge cards. So in all of our releases, you'll get a trading card. It'll have artwork on the front with our number of the release, but on the back is a developer-specific challenge. And this is something that they set. But what happens is when people complete the challenge and they just follow the simple rules on the back, which is, take a pic of the completed challenge on your screen, share it on social media, tag us, we're going to mail them a patch for free. So it's a little achievement.
So cool.
Yeah.
That is so... Oh, I love it. I love it. Literally, stop it. That's so nice. I love it. If every game did that, I would... Oh, I love it.
Well, Nintendo doesn't have a true achievement system. And for us, yes, I'm a collector, but I don't purposely keep my games sealed. I open them as I play them, and because I don't have a lot of time to play, the majority of my collection is sealed. But we want people to play these games. We find them to be very fun, regardless of the genre. And I feel like this is just a nice incentive to get people to pop open the case, take out the cartridge, and then you get a reward for just playing the game. And the challenges, are challenging, but they're not impossible. I mean, they're doable for anybody that just wants to invest a little bit of time. And they're limited. So, for the first 2 games, we made 1,000 patches. We'll see how it goes, how well it's received. Obviously, if we see everybody doing it, we'll make it more accessible. If not, we may even limit it even more to the people who really want to just do more with the games that they buy. But I think it's fun. I think it's just something to build a community around. It gets people talking about the games and also playing them. And I think that's what's really important, is that these games are just so fun. That's why, we picked them and we reached out to the developers, and we just want more people to play them. And this is just a little reward for doing that. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see once we start seeing people completing the challenges and then getting these patches in the mail. But yeah, we're excited. It's just it's like our own little achievement system.
I absolutely love it. Yeah, literally, like,
awesome.
It's the little things like that sell me on something. It's the sort of thing that would make me just go, yeah, fine, I'll absolutely buy that. There we go, 100 quid. No, absolutely no problem. No problem at all.
As a new publisher, one thing we're learning is that it is not a smooth process because, depending on the developer, you have a lot of interaction with them before you decide to sign the game. Others, you just kind of quickly talk and it's just handshake, send out the agreement, and everybody is happy. But what's really fun to learn and also stressful is the whole process with Nintendo, because we'll take Super Blood Hockey as an example. That game has been out for a few years on the eShop. It's available. You could have already bought it if you wanted to. And when it came to the physical production, we thought, okay, we'll submit the digital file to Nintendo for physical production. Shouldn't be any issues. The game exists already. And they started finding bugs and problems that they didn't catch before or just weren't known before. And nothing changed. The developer hadn't done any updates or anything, but they started I don't know what kind of ninja wizards they have on their team to find bugs, but it got bounced back to us 5 times for various things. And it wasn't anything that honestly you or me playing would probably ever come across. Like one, I think, is when you're putting in your high score and you change your characters to Japanese characters and then you back out of the screen, then ABC happens. And we're thinking whoever does these things, but they found one where if you start charging up your shot on the left hand side of the screen and then you release it and then you start moving to the right hand in the upper right corner, the charge sound still stays on for a few seconds. So they found all these problems. So what's nice is that the physical version will have the most updated version of the game, but what happens is it starts causing delays because whereas you thought you would just submit a game, you'd wait, and then it would get approved, you're going back and forth a few times, which obviously delays the process. And then what's funny is that once that's all done, Nintendo sends you the approval, you pay for the cartridges, and it honestly was only like 2-3 weeks for them to ship and for us to have them already. So that part wasn't long at all. And then, of course, when you're submitting your artwork, you submit every single piece to them, and they have to approve it all. If there's something that's questionable on the artwork, if the warning information on the back isn't correct, they'll bounce that back. You have to make your changes, resubmit, then you wait another week or so. So it's little things like that it's I would call them first game learning problems, because as we move along, obviously we now know what to look for, what to make sure is included. So we're going to be kind of grouping our games together by series. So this is more like internal dialogue and lingo, and also for marketing. But Pigeon Dev and Super Blood Hockey are our Series 1 games, just 2 of them. And then Series 2 is going to include Robot Named Fight and 2 other games that we haven't announced yet. But even though we haven't announced them, we're already doing that whole approval process with Nintendo. So that way, by the time we announce the games, that lot check or that review of the file is going to be done. So we don't have that delay. Also, things should start going a lot faster, because with the packing facility, we'll have already done 2 games with them. We obviously know how they work. We know what they look for when we're submitting things. So our goal is that everything starts to speed up a little bit more. But hopefully, with our Series 2, we will see a quicker shipping time from the moment that we launch our pre-orders up until when we get to say, hey, everyone, your game is on its way.
So how about beyond that? So you've got plans for your second series.
Yep.
And what aspirations do you have for the company as obviously it hopefully grows over the coming months and years? Where do you want to get to?
So there's a few things that are in the works that, we're already talking about. One is that we'd love to bring developers in-house and start developing our own games under our line. I think that would be a great opportunity because, being a physical publisher, we are, and you could also register as a digital publisher. So it's very possible for us to kind of handle all those pieces, but we'd love to, bring in new developers or people who want to get into the industry and start building games ourselves, which I think would be fun. Another piece is we would love to partner with other companies. And we've seen this a few times where, they'll release a game, but maybe we'll do the deluxe or the special edition or our premium edition version of that game. So that's another aspect. And then, of course, I want this to be full-time. Jeffrey and I both have full-time jobs where we're doing this in between those moments and then in our free time outside of that. But I would absolutely love for this to be our full-time career where, we get our headquarters set up and we have our team in-house and this is all we're doing. And, we have Switch right now, but we'd love to expand eventually into the other consoles as well and just be an all-around publisher.
Amazing. Really hope that you guys get to that point. It's going to be great for us getting to know you to see how it's going to develop over the next month, years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be great. And who knows, maybe one day we'll make a game that you can release.
There you go.
That's I'm going to add that to my bucket list now. So,
absolutely.
Do it.
So, to round this episode off, we thought that we'd all pick a game that we'd love to see either immortalised in physical form if it hasn't had a physical release, or perhaps a collector's edition of a game that we'd love to see. So, for me, it's an easy one, which is Hades. When I was sort of thinking about this, I was searching online because I was like, I'm aware that obviously loads of games have been released already. And I thought, Hades must have had something. It must have had something, but it hasn't. And that's mad. Because I would buy the crap out of a beautiful special edition of that with like an art book, the soundtrack, an entire encyclopedia of lore, a few models, a replica fish, all of it. Like, I really am surprised it hasn't been snapped up by a publisher already, to be honest.
I think Limited Run will probably have it in the works.
They must do. They already released Bastion and Transistor, which are obviously Supergiant games as well. So, yeah, they're obviously open to that. I'd certainly be surprised if it doesn't even come out this year, especially, they could even market it as a Game of the Year edition because it picked up a few of those awards. I'm ready. My wallet is ready. I'm open. Just give me the URL and you can have anything. Chris, how about you?
The 2 games I want preserved more than any other modern indie titles are both of Jonathan Blow's games.
Oh, yeah.
Because, Braid was the beginning of the modern indie era on consoles, really. It was right at the ground floor. And it seems baffling to me that it has never been preserved for the platforms it launched on. It's also weird. It's never been ported. I know it's got a release coming up in the near future, kind of a legacy sort of remastered version. but it's never been on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One or the Switch, and it would just fit neatly on any of those machines. So that's always quite strange. But The Witness as well, I really want a copy of The Witness for the shelf. And when it first came out, I remember umming and ahhing over spending the 30 odd quid it was on the PlayStation Network store, because it had got so much promotion from Sony and Jonathan Blow was such a big figure at that time. I thought a disc release is just a shoe-in. And I was thinking, okay, I'll just wait a month or two and then we'll see what happens. Keep my ear to the ground. And it never did. And I'm really glad that I pulled the trigger like really early on when that game first launched, because it's a very good title. It's a very, very good game. And, I've got loads of games that have been preserved, physical copies for the Vita or the PlayStation 4 or the Switch, that are a lot worse than The Witness and probably don't deserve that shelf space as much as this title does. This is what I mentioned earlier. I get the fear over things like The Witness just being gone one day because Sony says, yep, that's the end. We're just switching the servers off. Good night. And it can't be that way. Games that are this important need something that people can hold on to.
Yeah.
And as much as it's unlikely that Sony is going to shut down tomorrow or Steam is going to disappear or any of these storefronts are just gone, it's still a possibility, as we've seen, like I said, with Nintendo's eShop for the Wii. It's not impossible that one day things can just get to a point where financially it doesn't make sense to keep the servers up. And yeah, The Witness deserves its place on a shelf.
Brings me back to what I was saying about curating my own museum of things. And because there are games that mean a lot to me that I don't have a physical thing for, The Witness being one of them, because I got a little triptych of canvases printed, which were my way of honouring some games that I didn't have another physical thing for. So I've got The Witness, Outer Wilds, which has now got physical release.
It does, yeah.
And Ori and the Blind Forest, which I've got on the way. But yeah, it's nice to have a piece of art of The Witness on my wall, so I've got something at least in this museum to represent, obviously, one of the greatest games ever made. Minty, how about you? What would you love to get your grubby mitts on?
Well, obviously it's going to be Turok 3, but that's what I came into the episode being all prepared to say, but something's happened in my head with all this talk of physical bestiaries and strategy guides. And, this probably isn't for a game that exists yet, but wouldn't it be great to to have a game that has like a physical bestiary with also like a code breaker element that you then input into the game somehow?
Barcode Battler. Do you remember Barcode Battler?
No.
It was a weird handheld thing, I guess, that came out in the 90s. And you used to scan a barcode just from like a packet of food. And the barcode would then generate a little creature for you that you fought other people with. So it just took like the numbers and digits from the barcode that would then set the creature's hit points and strength or whatever.
Okay, well that's...
So yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, that's the kind of intersectionality that I'm very much interested in.
Yeah.
But Turok 3.
You love Turok. So, bring us on home, JP. This could be potentially something that you've got your sights on to release yourself. But what edition would you love to see?
Yeah, there's actually two games that I have my eye on, so it's not a tease of it's coming, but maybe one day I would absolutely hope for. But there's a game by Retroid called Wonderling. Came out last year. I got to play this at PAX with the developer. It was the first time I ever saw this game. We even did it for our playcast and absolutely love it. It's a puzzle platformer where the twist is you're playing as the little minion in a video game. You're not playing as the hero, but you're playing as just like the grunt minion, and you have to stop the bad guy who's the hero. I love the twist on it. It's really cool because, you start off just being able to go left and right, and then you can't stop. So when he hits a wall, he goes the other way. So you have to jump. You eventually get more power-ups. You have unlockables. And it's just a fun game. Like, it really is. I would highly recommend checking it out. And I would absolutely love to do a physical of that. So maybe one day. And then there's another game that actually came out on the Wii U. And then it came out digitally on the eShop. And it's called Adventure of Pip from TikTok Games.
Oh, yes.
And what's awesome is that you literally transform yourself from a 1-bit pixel to 8-bit to 16-bit. It's a platformer, and it helps you obviously navigate the puzzles and the levels. And the game is just so much fun. It's super big. I haven't even beaten it yet, but you look at the world map and they're broken into levels. I love the idea of that. I love, creativity in games like that. So And it obviously also has the throwback to like the retro style, which, you know, we love. So those would be 2 games that I would absolutely love to see physical. Even better, I'd love to see them under the Premium Edition name. But yeah, those are 2 that I would say off the eShop that I would love to see.
So there we have it. That is the end of this special episode celebrating physical games. Thank you hugely, JP, for joining us.
Thank you.
So if people want to get hold of any of the physical games that you are currently producing with Premium Edition games, how can they do that?
So because we couldn't get the shipping low enough that we thought would be fair for anybody outside the US, we actually partnered with Video Games Plus in Canada. They handle all of our international shipping. Our games are directly on their site, same price that we offer, and their shipping is literally the same as what we offer in the US, which is unbelievable. It's just a few bucks to ship around the world when it's not free shipping, you know, on our Premium Edition for Pigeon Dev. All the other versions and Super Blood Hockey, a little bit of shipping, but it's very, very fair. So videogamesplus.ca is where you can find our games if you're outside the US, and then premiumeditiongames.com if you're in the US. But we have the whole world covered.
If you want to get in touch with us, you can do that. We have got all the social media channels, facebook.com/our3cents, Instagram, Twitch, and TikTok at O3C Podcast. We're on YouTube. If you search for Our 3 Cents, you can find all of our video content there. Please do get in touch with us. Chat to us about the games that you're playing. Give us your opinions on the games that we've spoken about in this. Tell us what your favourite physical game ever is. We'd love to hear all about that. You can also get in touch with us individually. I am on Twitter at Jonathan Dunn.
My house is at Chaz_Hodges.
Oh God, I'm Clement_Boo.
And if people want to get in touch with you, JP, what's the best way to do that?
So for my personal channel, go to jpswitchmania.com. If it's Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter, just type in JP Switchmania. You'll see me. And of course, with Premium Edition games, on Twitter, it's Premium Edition and then the number 1. And then anywhere else, so that's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, it's Premium Edition Games. And of course, we have our Discord channel that you're always more than welcome to join, where we talk about our games, any game, and you can also comment on which games you'd like to see physically.
Fantastic. Also, if you are really enjoying what we're doing here at Our 3 Cents and you fancy supporting us a little bit more, or just getting more out of us because you're so bloody hungry for our chat, then you can check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/our3cents. On there, you can see all the perks that are on offer for the various different pledging tiers, such as full bonus episodes, exclusive deleted scenes and outtakes that are very funny, very, very silly as well, but very good. There's also custom artwork, and there's access to the exclusive Our 3 Cents Discord channel as well, which is just a very nice place to be. And please do join us next week as we resume our countdown with our 9th favourite video games of all time.
And now a word from our sponsor.
The award-winning Go Nintendo podcast is the best place to get the latest news on the world of Nintendo. We cover the biggest stories, share impressions of the latest games, and answer your burning questions. There's also some general pop culture talk, game music trivia, a heaping helping of silliness, and did I mention our sassy robot companion?
I'm the star of the show.
Catch new episodes of the Go Nintendo podcast every Saturday on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey Chris, what's the War Rocket Ajax podcast about?
Well, Matt, if we were smart, it'd be about murders, but it's actually about comics.
War Rocket Ajax. It's not about murders, but it is weekly on the Greenlit Podcast Network.